Good morning. Today is Tuesday, September the 2nd, and in this video, I'm going to go over a trade I constructed to provide coverage to the downside in the E-minis or SPOOs, so to speak, for a concern that I have about a possible liquidity crunch later on this month. Now, I do want to emphasize that I'm not predicting or saying that we will have a liquidity crunch, which, if it does happen, can create a number of problems. And I think a little bit of that is being manifested, currently manifested through the movement at the upper end of the yield curve, particularly the 30-year bonds. But anyway, having that concern, I wanted to do something about it. And what I did was construct a 100 wide butterfly in the E-minis, which I'm going to go over now. Hope you enjoy. Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September the 2nd, a few minutes past 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and I'm going to cover a trade that I constructed last Friday. So to begin with, last Friday, with a little bit less than an hour before the close, I decided to put on a very wide butterfly in the E-mini options. The expiration for this contract is September 25th. And what I did was I purchased a butterfly, and the strikes I used were 64.50 for the first strike. The center strike is 63.50, and the strike that's farthest out of the money is 62.50. Note that this butterfly is symmetrically constructed, which butterflies usually are. So there's a 100 handle width between strikes. 64.50, 63.50, there's first 100, and then the following 100 is down to 62.50. I paid $7.50 for this trade, a $7.50 debit. So times the multiplier of 50 cost me a little more than $350. $375 should be to put this on. So the market, I was up early this morning at about 1 o'clock, and the minis were down roughly 40. Now, at that point, what I was thinking of doing to the trade, and let me go to this tab here. So the original construction, let me show you the analysis. That'll make it a little easier to visualize the analysis tab. So the original trade, as I mentioned, was the 64 half, 63 half, 62 half. And the visual on that trade is the following. The center strike is at 63.50. It's 100 wide. You note that my max profit, and this is at expiration, by the way, would be $4,625. So that $4,625 comes from $5,000 max profit on this trade from the 64.50 strike to the 63.50, because that's 100 times $50 per handle minus the cost of $375. So if you pin the tail on the donkey, this trade is going to be worth a nice little chunk of change. However, I'm not just in need of getting the direction right on this trade, but I have to get the magnitude of the move correct, and I also have to be correct on timing, because note that the expiration is 23 days from today. So as if picking or choosing direction correctly isn't hard enough, I added two more components to the trade. The reasons for choosing this particular expiration briefly was I wasn't quite sure about when the move I'm implying by constructing the trade was going to happen. So I went out in time, and I used more time than I might normally use for this type of trade. Had I been under the impression that this move to the downside was going to happen sooner, I might have gone with an expiration such as today or tomorrow or the following day, but I didn't, so I gave myself a little more time. Anyway, that being said, at roughly 1 in the morning, the butterfly that I constructed, so the original construction of this trade, let me go back to the analysis tab, was trading at about $9. And remember, 9 give or take a few, give or take a little bit. And remember, I did pay 7.5 for it. So I wasn't interested in exiting the trade. But what I did want to do was move the wings, possibly. So I was looking at pricing out moving the 6450 wing up 50 down 50 to 6400, and then moving the 6250 wing on the other side up 50 handles to 6300. But I wasn't in favor of the price I was getting, or necessarily pinching the butterfly, so to speak, in that manner. So what I ended up doing was I sold, and remember, this is a 100 wide butterfly, so I got a lot of room to play with as far as any modifications to the trade are concerned. So what I ended up doing was I sold a Condor inside this wide butterfly. And the Condor, what I did here was I sold the 6425 and I bought the 6375. So there's a difference there of 50. And in addition to that, to close the other side of the Condor, I bought the 6325 and I sold a 6275. Again, the difference between those, that vertical is 50. So that leaves me with, one way of looking at it is, I now have a butterfly around the 6350 strike, which is the center strike of the entire range, and that butterfly is 25 wide. So it's much smaller than the original 100 wide. However, in addition to this butterfly that's 25 wide, now I have a Condor that's 25 wide, but there is a gap of 150 in between this Condor. So if I remove the butterfly here and take a look at this Condor, which is what was constructed, so the bottom end is at 6250, and there's a 25 difference, and then between 6275 I have 150 handles of space to the end of the other vertical, which is between 6425 and 6450. So that's part of the construction, but again, remember, I still have this butterfly in between. So the entire trade looks like the following. I have the apex of the P&L at 6350, and that's going to net me a little more than 2300, and that's pinning the tail on the donkey at expiration. And then this is a visual of the beginning portion of the Condor. It continues, we have the butterfly in the middle, and then I have the rest of the Condor all the way down to 6250. Now note that I do still have some possibility of loss on this trade should it expire outside of the bounds of the Condor / butterfly. But I did pull in a credit for doing this of a little more than 4, I believe. So 4 4.25. And if we subtract the 4.25 from the 750, that means I have risk of 3.25 on this. And with the multiplier of $50, that's going to be 150, and the quarters 162.50 is going to be my risk. So there we go, 162.50, as opposed to the original 375. So I was able to make this modification, reduce my risk, reduced my risk by more than half of the original cost of the trade, which was $750, and I sold this Condor for $425. So I like this for now because I have a very wide range of this profit tent, so to speak, has a very wide range, and the apex of it still provides a decent profit. I do have a lot of time remaining on this trade, 23 days. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then, but I was able to hedge off some of the risk for what I thought left me with a decent overall position, which is a Condor with a butterfly, a 25 wide butterfly centered in the middle. All right, that's it for now. We will see how this turns out.